The Valeth Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 17 species. They had burned worlds and built an empire across 400 star systems. High Sovereign Vorath sat on his throne made from the bones of fallen kings, and he believed nothing in the universe could challenge his power. So when his scouts discovered the small, human colony on Kepler 4 for 2b, he laughed. The reports called them humans, a young species. Soft bodies, no natural weapons. They had spread to only 200 worlds in their short history. Their technology was primitive compared to the great Valeth war machines. The colony on Kepler 4 for 2b was a mining outpost. Perhaps 50,000 workers. A few ships for defense? Nothing more. Send Fleet Commander Drexus, Vorath ordered. Give him 200 warships. I want that world burned within the week. His advisors bowed. None of them questioned the order. Why would they? The Valeth had never lost a war. They had never met an enemy they could not crush. Fleet Commander Drexus received his orders with pride. 200 warships to destroy a mining colony. It was more than enough. It was an overwhelming force. The humans would see his fleet and surrender. If they did not surrender, they would die. Either way, Drexus would return home as a hero. His fleet departed 3 days later. 200 vessels of war. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains. Soldiers bred for combat. Drexus stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars blur as they entered faster than light travel. How long until we reach the target? He asked. 7 days, Commander. Drexus smiled. 7 days. Then glory dot on Kepler 4 for to be. Admiral Kong Taiho was drinking coffee when the alarm sounded. He was 53 years old. He had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 30 years. He had fought pirates. He had protected convoys. He had never seen real war. His posting to this mining colony was supposed to be quiet, a final assignment before retirement. Now his tactical officer, Lieutenant Yoon Nari, was running toward him with fear in her eyes. Admiral, she said, long-range sensors have detected a fleet. 200 ships. They are heading directly for us. Taiho set down his coffee. His hand was steady. His heart was not. 200 ships, he repeated. And we have 12 frigates. Yes, sir. Taiho walked to the command center. The screens showed the incoming fleet, 200 dots of light moving through space like a swarm of angry insects. At their current speed, they would arrive in 72 hours. 72 hours. That was all the time he had. Send a distress signal to Earth, Taiho ordered. Tell them we are under attack. Tell them to send everything they have. Lieutenant Nari hesitated. Sir, Earth is 43 days away at maximum speed. Help cannot arrive in time. I know, Taiho said. Send the signal anyway. Someone needs to know what happened here. The message was sent. It flew through space at the speed of light, carrying news of death toward a home that could not save them. Taiho gathered his officers. Captain Beek Sunhwa commanded the ground militia. 3,000 soldiers. Farmers and miners who had trained for combat but never expected to fight. Pilot Officer Han Ji-ho led the fighter squadrons. Young pilots with fast reflexes and no experience, they stood before their admiral and waited for orders. I will not lie to you, Taiho said. We cannot win this battle. 200 warships against 12 frigates. Those numbers do not allow for victory. But we can fight. We can make them pay for every kilometer of space. We can buy time. Time for what, sir? Captain Sunwoo asked. Taiho looked at his officers. These men and women would die following his orders. They deserved the truth. Time for Earth to learn about this enemy. Time for our people to prepare. If we fall quickly, the enemy will think we are weak. They will attack more colonies. More people will die. But if we fight hard, if we make them bleed, they will hesitate. They will fear us. That fear might save millions of lives. Silence filled the room. Then Pilot Officer Jiho spoke. How do we make them bleed, sir? Taiho smiled. It was a cold smile. A warrior's smile. Use everything we have. The asteroid field between us and them? The magnetic storms around the planet? Our ships are smaller and faster. We do not fight them head-on. We hit them and run. We make them chase us into the rocks. We make every shot count. For the next 72 hours, the colony prepared for war. The civilians were moved into underground bunkers. The mining equipment was converted into weapons. Tunnels were dug. Traps were set. The 3,000 soldiers of the ground militia checked their weapons and said goodbye to their families. Lieutenant Nari worked without sleep. She mapped every asteroid. She calculated every angle. She found the places where the enemy's superior numbers would mean nothing. Admiral Taiho walked among his people. He shook hands. He spoke words of courage. Inside, he felt the weight of command. These people would die because he ordered them to fight. That burden would stay with him until his last breath. On the final night, he stood alone on the observation deck and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning peacefully. Children were playing. People were laughing. They did not know that war was coming. Sir, Lieutenant Nari said from behind him, the enemy fleet has dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They are entering the system. Taiho turned from the stars. His face was calm. His eyes were hard. All hands to battle stations, he said. Today we teach them that humans do not surrender. Today, we show them the price of attacking our home. The 12 frigates powered their engines. The fighters launched from their bays. 3,000 soldiers took their positions on the ground. Fleet Commander Drexus looked at his sensors and saw the tiny human fleet moving to intercept him. 12 ships against 200. He laughed at their stupidity. They are brave, his second officer said. They are fools, Drexus replied. Destroy them. The Battle of Kepler 442b began. Neither side knew that this small fight would change the galaxy forever. Neither side knew that the next 9 days would create legends that would be told for 1,000 years, Admiral. Taiho knew only one thing. He would not let his people die without a fight, and so the humans charged into the fire. The first Valith ship died before it knew it was in danger. Admiral Taiho had hidden 3 frigates inside a large asteroid. Their engines were cold. Their systems were silent. They looked like rocks floating in space. When the enemy fleet passed by, the frigates came alive. They fired their missiles at point-blank range. The Valith cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Its crew never had time to scream. Fleet Commander Drexus watched the explosion from his flagship. His scales turned pale with shock. One moment his fleet was moving in perfect formation. The next moment, a ship was gone. What happened? He demanded. Ambush, Commander. 3 human ships were hiding in the asteroid field. Drexus snarled. Destroy them. 20 Valith ships turned to chase the 3 frigates. The humans ran. They flew deeper into the asteroid field, twisting between the massive rocks with impossible skill. Their ships were smaller and faster. They knew this space. They had mapped every rock, every gap, every shadow. The Valith ships were larger. They were built for open combat, not for flying through a maze of stone. 2 of them crashed into asteroids while chasing the humans. A third was destroyed when it flew into a minefield that Lieutenant Nari had placed the day before. 3 human frigates had killed 4 Valith ships in the first hour. Drexus was furious. He ordered his fleet to spread out and sweep the asteroid field. No more hiding. No more ambushes. He would find every human ship and burn them. But the humans did not hide. They attacked. Pilot Officer Han Jiho led his fighter squadron through a gap in the Valith formation. His pilots were young, but fearless. They flew their small craft between the enemy ships, firing missiles and cannons. They were too fast to hit. They were too small to target. The Valith ships began shooting at each other, trying to hit the human fighters. These creatures fight like insects, Drexus muttered. Annoying, but harmless. He was wrong about the second part. Jiho's squadron destroyed 6 enemy ships in 3 hours. 2 of his pilots died. The others kept fighting. Admiral Taiho watched from his command ship. His 12 frigates moved like ghosts. appearing from the asteroids to strike, and then vanishing before the enemy could respond. Every human ship fought as if it were worth 10 enemy vessels, but the numbers were too great. On the second day, the Valeth broke through the asteroid field. They reached open space around the planet. Admiral Taiho's frigates could no longer hide. All ships, form a defensive line, Taiho ordered. Protect the planet. 12 human frigates faced 190 Valith warships. The battle became a slaughter, but the humans refused to die easily. Every frigate fought until it could not fight anymore. When their weapons were destroyed, they rammed enemy ships. When their engines failed, their crews kept firing with whatever was left. Lieutenant Nara's ship took 17 direct hits before it finally exploded. She was transmitting tactical data to the ground forces until her last breath. Pilot Officer Jiho's fighter was damaged. His weapons were gone. His wingmates were dead. He turned his craft toward the largest enemy ship he could find and flew directly into its bridge. The explosion killed 300 Valith officers. By the end of the fourth day, the human fleet was gone. All 12 frigates were destroyed. All fighters were lost. Admiral Taiho's flagship was the last ship to fall. He was on the bridge when the missiles hit. His final transmission reached the ground forces. His voice was calm. You know what to do? Make them pay. Then silence. The Valith fleet had lost 73 ships. 44 more were damaged. Over 100,000 soldiers had died in space. Fleet Commander Drexus had expected an easy victory. He had received a nightmare, but the battle was not over, Captain. Beak Sunwoo stood in the command bunker and watched the enemy landing ships descend from orbit. Thousands of them. The sky turned dark with Valith craft. They outnumber us 50-1, Sergeant Major Park Yoonji said. She was standing beside him, checking her rifle. She was 45 years old. She had taught school before joining the militia. Now she would teach the enemy a different kind of lesson. 52-1, Sunwoo repeated. Then we each need to kill 50 of them. The Valith soldiers landed expecting to find frightened civilians. Instead, they found hell. The humans had spent 3 days preparing the ground. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a trap. The miners had used their drilling equipment to create underground tunnels that connected the entire colony. Human soldiers could appear anywhere, strike, vanish before the enemy could respond. Sergeant Major Yoonji led her squad through the tunnels. They emerged behind an enemy battalion. They killed 80 soldiers in 2 minutes. Then they disappeared back underground. The Valith soldiers were confused. They were trained to fight armies that stood in formation. These humans did not stand and fight. They hid in shadows. They struck from behind. They killed with knives and explosives and traps, and they did not surrender. The Valith captured wounded humans who refused to give information. They found soldiers who kept fighting with broken bones and missing limbs. They saw humans smile while dying. What is wrong with these creatures? A Valith officer asked. They are already defeated. Why do they keep fighting? His human prisoner, a young soldier with blood on his face, answered him. Because you are on our land, and we will never stop. The ground battle lasted 5 more days. 5 days of constant fighting. 5 days of blood and fire and death. Captain Sunwoo died on the 7th day, leading a charge to protect the civilian bunkers. Sergeant Major Yoonji took command. She died on the 9th day, holding a bridge while civilians escaped through underground tunnels. When the battle finally ended, the Valith had conquered the colony, but the cost was terrible. 180,000 Valith soldiers were dead, almost half of their invasion force. The remaining troops were exhausted and afraid. They had never fought an enemy like this. Fleet Commander Drexus walked through the burning streets of the colony. Bodies of humans and Valith lay everywhere. The smell of death filled the air. 412 humans had survived. They were captured and bound, but they did not look defeated. They looked at Drexus with cold eyes. They looked at him like they were already planning their revenge. How many of them were there? Drexus asked his officer. 3,000, Commander. 3,000 against 90,000. Drexus felt something he had never felt before. It was fear. They fought like demons, he whispered. They died smiling. What kind of creatures are these humans? He did not know that this was only the beginning. He did not know that he had just awakened something far worse than demons. He had awakened humanity, and humanity would answer. The prison station orbited the Valeth homeworld like a metal moon. Inside its walls, 412 humans waited in cells. They were beaten. They were starving. They were chained, but they were not broken. Intelligence Director Cephas walked through the prison corridor with confidence. He was the best interrogator in the Dominion. He had broken the minds of 17 different species. Humans would be no different. He entered the cell of Lieutenant Yunari. She was sitting on the cold floor with her back against the wall. Her face was bruised. Her uniform was torn, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She watched Cephas like a predator watching prey. Lieutenant Nari, Cephas said, "I am here to ask you some questions." "I know who you are," Nari replied, "and I know what you want. You will not get it." Cephas smiled. He had heard such words before. Everyone talked eventually. "Tell me about Earth's military forces," he said. "How many ships? How many soldiers?" Nari laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was the laugh of someone who knew a secret. You will find out soon enough." Cephas activated his neural probe. It was a device that caused pain beyond imagination. It could make the strongest warrior scream. It could shatter the toughest mind. He used it on Nari for 3 hours. She screamed. She shook. She bled from her nose and ears, but she did not talk. When Cephas finally stopped, Nari looked up at him with blood on her lips. She was smiling. "Is that all you have?" she asked. "We train with worse." Cephas left the cell with doubt in his heart. He had never failed to break a prisoner. This human female had endured his worst torture and mocked him at the end. He decided to try a different approach. He would find a weaker target. Private First Class Cho Minho was the youngest prisoner. He was only 20 years old. His face still had the softness of youth. Surely he would break easily. Cephas entered the young human's cell with false kindness. "You are very young," Cephas said. "Too young to die in a prison. I can help you. I can set you free. Just tell me what I need to know." Minho looked at the alien with empty eyes. "What do you want to know? Tell me about your homeworld. Tell me about Earth's defenses. How many ships protect your planet?" Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You attacked a mining colony? 50,000 people digging rocks from the ground. Our weakest outpost. Our smallest garrison," Cephas said eagerly. "And we destroyed it." "No," Minho replied. "You captured it. After losing 73 warships, after losing 180,000 soldiers, against 12 frigates and 3,000 militia." Cephas felt cold. "What is your point, human?" Minho leaned forward. His young face became hard. "My point is that you attacked the least important place we have. The place we barely protect. And we almost destroyed your entire fleet. Now imagine what happens when you attack somewhere we actually care about." Cephas left the cell without another word. That night, he could not sleep. The young human's words echoed in his mind. He began to study the data recovered from the captured colony. Ship records, communications, military documents. What he found made his blood freeze. The documents classified. Kepler-4 to be as a category for minor industrial outpost was the lowest possible priority. The garrison protecting it was called a frontier watch, the smallest type of military force. 12 frigates and 3,000 militia were considered minimum security. Cephas dug deeper. He found references to something called the United Earth Defense Force. He found numbers that made no sense. They had to be wrong. They had to be exaggerated. 14,000 capital warships, 2.3 million combat spacecraft. 190 million active soldiers, 200 colony worlds under full military protection. Cephas. Read the numbers again, and again, and again, The Valeth Dominion had 4,000 warships in their entire navy. They had just lost 73 of them to 12 human frigates at a mining outpost. The humans had 14,000. Cephas ran to the palace of High Sovereign Vorath. It was the middle of the night. The guards tried to stop him. He pushed past them with desperate strength. "High Sovereign," he shouted, "you must see this. You must see what I have found." Vorath was angry at being disturbed. He was ready to have Cephas executed. But then he saw the fear in the intelligence director's eyes. Vorath had never seen Cephas afraid of anything. "Speak," Vorath commanded. Cephas presented his findings. The documents. The numbers. The terrible truth. "Colony we attacked was their lowest priority," Cephas said. "Their garrison was the minimum possible force, and they killed 1/3 of our attacking fleet." Vorath stared at the numbers. His scales turned white. "This cannot be correct. No species has this much military power. I verified it multiple times, High Sovereign. These numbers are accurate, and there is more." Cephas showed the human military classification system. The 12 frigates that had fought so bravely were classified as patrol vessels, the smallest warships in the human navy. The ships above them were cruisers. Above that, battleships. Above that, dreadnoughts. Above that, titans. The largest human warship was 10 times the size of the largest Valeth vessel. "We attacked them thinking they were weak," Cephas said. "We thought they were primitive. We thought they were easy prey. High Sovereign, we were wrong. We have awakened something terrible." Vorath sat in silence for a long time. The weight of his mistake pressed down on him like a mountain. "How long until they respond?" he asked finally. "Their distress signal would have reached Earth by now. If their fleet travels at maximum speed..." Cephas did quick calculations. "They could be here within 40 days. 40 days. 40 days until the humans came." "What do we do?" Vorath asked. For the first time in his long reign, the High Sovereign sounded like a frightened child. Cephas had no answer. In her cell, Lieutenant Nari sat in the darkness and smiled. She could not hear the conversation happening in the palace, but she knew what was coming. She whispered to the shadows around her, "They are coming for us. And when they arrive, you will learn what fear really means." The humans were coming, and the galaxy would tremble. The Dominion High Council had not gathered in emergency session for 500 years. The last time was during the Great Plague that killed 1/4 of their population. Now they gathered again, and the threat was even worse. 12 counselors sat in the Great Hall. Above them, holographic displays showed the terrible numbers. 14,000 human warships, millions of combat craft, nearly 1 billion soldiers. The counselors stared at the data with wide eyes and pale scales. High Sovereign Vorath stood before them, trying to maintain his dignity. But everyone could see the fear behind his calm mask. "This cannot be correct," Grand Admiral Kethris said. He was the supreme commander of all Valeth military forces. His voice trembled as he spoke. "No species has ever possessed such power. These numbers must be exaggerated." "They're not." Intelligence Director Cephas replied, "I have verified them through multiple sources. The humans have spent centuries building their military. They have been preparing for war. They simply never started one. Till we attacked them," Counselor Veth said bitterly. The room fell silent. Fleet Commander Drexus stood in the corner. He had been summoned from Kepler-4 for Tubi to give his report. His scales were gray with exhaustion. His eyes held the haunted look of a soldier who had seen too much. "Tell them," Vorath ordered. "Tell them what you witnessed." Drexus stepped forward. He looked at the council and saw old politicians who had never fought in battle. They did not understand what was coming. "The humans fight without fear," he said. "I watched a pilot crash his damaged craft into our command ship. He was smiling when he died. I saw soldiers continue fighting with missing limbs. I saw them charge our positions knowing they would die." He paused. The memories were too fresh. "They are not like the other species we have conquered. The others surrendered when they saw our power. The humans see our power and become angry. Death does not frighten them. Pain does not stop them. They fought us for 9 days. 3,000 against 200,000. And when they finally fell, they looked at us with hate in their eyes. They looked at us like they were already planning their revenge. The counselor shifted nervously. "You're telling us," Grand Admiral Kethris said slowly, that wasn't their full force? "We lost 73 warships to 12 frigates from a mining colony." "Yes, Admiral. And now their real military is coming?" "Yes, Admiral." Kethris looked at the numbers on the display. 73 ships lost to 12. A ratio of 6 to 1 in favor of the humans. If that ratio held against their full fleet, "We cannot win this war," he said quietly. The chamber erupted in chaos. Counselors shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for massive rearmament. One elderly counselor suggested destroying the human prisoners to eliminate witnesses. "Enough," Voroth roared. Silence returned. "We must find a way to negotiate," Voroth said. "We must offer peace before their fleet arrives." "With what leverage?" Counselor Veth asked. "We attacked their world. We killed their people. We hold their citizens as prisoners. Why would they accept peace?" Before anyone could answer, a young officer rushed into the chamber. His face was white with terror. "My sovereign." "A human ship has entered our space." Every eye turned to the officer. "One ship?" Voroth asked. "Destroy it." "You do not understand, High Sovereign. It is a diplomatic vessel and its escort." The officer activated a display showing the sensor data. One human battleship floated at the edge of Valeth space. It was enormous. Its hull stretched for kilometers. Its weapons bristled like thorns on a metal giant. It was larger than any Valeth ship. It was larger than any station. It was a monster made of steel and power. "That is their escort for one diplomatic vessel," the officer whispered. "One ship. That is what they send to deliver a message." A human woman appeared on the communication screen. She was middle-aged with sharp features and calm eyes. She wore a simple gray uniform. Her name was Ambassador Yimbora. "Hi, Sovereign Voroth," she said. Her voice was steady. Her face showed no emotion. "I represent the United Earth Assembly. I am here to discuss the attack on our colony at Kepler 44b." Voroth forced his voice to remain steady. "We are willing to discuss terms?" "Good." Ambassador Yim's smile never reached her eyes. "Then let me be clear about the situation. You have attacked a sovereign human world. You have killed 2,847 of our citizens. You are holding 412 of our people as prisoners." She leaned forward slightly. "The United Earth Assembly has declared a state of war against the Valeth Dominion. You have 30 standard days to release our prisoners and offer terms of unconditional surrender. This is not a negotiation. These are facts." Voroth felt his heart pounding. "Unconditional surrender? You dare, I dare nothing, High Sovereign. I merely state what will happen. In 30 days, a fleet will arrive to retrieve our people. You may surrender before then, or you may fight. The choice is yours. The result will be the same." "How large is this fleet?" Kethris demanded. Ambassador Yim considered the question. "The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet has been assigned to this operation. 2,400 warships. We considered it a proportional response for an attack on a Category 4 outpost. 2,400 ships. Against the Veleth's remaining 3,900, and this was their proportional response." "You have 30 days," Ambassador Yim repeated. "Use them wisely." The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the sensor officer made a sound of terror. "High Sovereign." "Our long-range sensors? There are contacts at the edge of our space. Thousands of contacts." The display updated. Tiny dots of light appeared at the borders of Valeth territory. So many dots. So many ships. "They are not waiting for an answer," Sifa said. His voice was hollow. "They are already coming." Voroth looked at his council. He looked at his advisors. He looked at the sensor display showing the approaching human fleet. 3,000 years of Valeth supremacy. 400 conquered systems. 17 enslaved species. All of it ending because he had attacked a mining colony. What do we do? Counselor Veth asked. Vorath had no answer. In her cell, Lieutenant Nari heard the distant sound of alarms. She heard Valeth soldiers running through the corridors. She heard the fear in their voices. She looked up at the ceiling and spoke to no one. They are coming. For the first time in 30 days, she laughed with pure joy. Fleet Admiral Jiang Wujin stood on the bridge of the battleship Eternal Dawn and watched the stars. Behind him, 2,400 warships moved in perfect formation. The largest fleet humanity had deployed in 50 years, and this was only a medium response. Wujin was 60 years old. He had gray hair and a scarred face. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. Now he was leading the mission to rescue 412 citizens from an empire that had dared to attack humanity. Admiral, his tactical officer, reported, "The Valeth have assembled their fleet at the border fortress. 4,000 ships." Wujin studied the display. 4,000 enemy vessels. They had gathered everything they had. Every ship, every soldier. Their entire navy in one place, it would not be enough. All ships, Wujin ordered. Battle formation. We break through their line and proceed to the prison station. Our people come home today, the human fleet advanced. Fleet Commander Drexus watched from the Fortress Command Center. He had survived the Battle of Kepler 44-B. Now he would face the consequences. They are outnumbered, one of his officers said hopefully. We have 4,000 ships. They have only 2,400. Drexus shook his head. He had learned the truth at the mining colony. Numbers meant nothing against humans. Tell the fleet to hold formation, he ordered. No one fires until they are in optimal range. We need every shot to count. The human fleet came closer. Their ships moved with terrible precision. No wasted motion. No hesitation. They knew exactly what they were doing. The Valeth opened fire first. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked across space. The sky burned with light. The human ships did not slow down. Their point defense systems activated. Thousands of small cannons fired in coordinated patterns, destroying incoming fire with impossible accuracy. Less than 3% of Valeth shots hit their targets. Then the humans fired back. Drexus watched his ships explode. 1, 10, 50. The humans did not waste ammunition. Each shot found a target. Each missile hit a weak point. They had studied Valeth's ships. They knew exactly where to strike. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was not a fight. It was an execution. Human warships tore through the Valeth formation like wolves through a herd of sheep. They fought in perfect coordination, supporting each other, covering each other, never leaving a gap in their lines. The Valeth tried to respond, but their communication systems were jammed. Their sensors were blinded. They fought in darkness while the humans saw everything. Drexus watched 3,000 of his ships die. He watched the fortress station crack and burn. He watched soldiers he had served with for decades vanish in balls of fire. When his own flagship took a direct hit, he felt almost relieved. The bridge exploded around him. Fire consumed everything. In his last moment, Drexus thought about the mining colony, about the humans who had died smiling. Now he understood why. The battle ended. The human fleet had lost 300 ships. The Valeth had lost everything. Admiral Wujin looked at the wreckage floating in space. Thousands of broken hulls. Millions of dead. An empire's navy reduced to scrap metal in 6 hours. Captain Shin Hae-yoon will lead the assault on the prison station. Captain Shin Hae-yoon was 35 years old. She was the best special operations officer in the fleet. Her team of 500 soldiers were trained to rescue hostages in impossible situations. This situation was not impossible. It was easy. The prison station's defenses had been destroyed in the battle. Hae-yoon's team cut through the outer hull and entered the facility. They moved with practiced efficiency, clearing corridor after corridor. The Valeth guards tried to fight. They died quickly. Hae-yoon reached the prison cells in less than an hour. she found 412 humans waiting for her. They were thin. They were battered. But they were alive. Lieutenant Nari looked up when the cell door opened. She saw human soldiers in combat armor. She saw the flag of Earth on their shoulders. Lieutenant Nari, Haeyun asked. I am Captain Shin Haeyun. We are here to take you home. Nari stood slowly. Her legs were weak from weeks of captivity, but her voice was strong. What took you so long? Haeyun smiled. Traffic was bad. The rescue was complete within 2 hours. All 412 prisoners were loaded onto medical ships. They would receive treatment. They would recover. They would see their families again. Admiral Wu Jian watched from his bridge as the last transport departed. His mission was almost complete, but one thing remained. A communication request came from the Valeth homeworld. High Sovereign Vorath appeared on the screen. He looked broken. His scales were gray. His eyes were empty. We surrender, Vorath said. We accept your terms. Please. No more. Ambassador Yimbora appeared on a split screen. She had been waiting for this moment. You accept unconditional surrender? She asked. Yes. Then here are your terms. Ambassador Yim's voice was cold. Complete disarmament of all military forces. War reparations of 1 trillion credits to be paid over 100 years. The immediate release of all species you have conquered and enslaved. And you personally, High Sovereign Vorath, will stand trial for crimes against humanity. Vorath looked like he wanted to argue. But he saw the human fleet floating above his world. He saw the wreckage of his navy drifting in space. He had no choice. We accept. Communication ended. 3 months later, Admiral Wu Jin stood on Kepler-4 for 2B. The colony was being rebuilt. New ships filled the space above. New settlers were arriving to replace those who had been lost. But first, a memorial had been built. A wall of black stone stood in the center of the colony. On it were carved 2,847 names. Admiral Kang Tai-ho, Lieutenant Nari, who had survived, but his fallen comrades had not. Captain Baek Sunwoo, Sergeant Major Park Yoonji, Pilot Officer Han Ji-ho, and thousands more. Wu Jin touched the stone. It was cold beneath his fingers. He held the line, he whispered. You fought when you had no hope. You died so that we would have time to respond. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Behind him, representatives from 17 species watched in silence. These were the people the Valeth had enslaved. Now they were free because of humanity's response. One of them, an elder from a species that had been conquered 2,000 years ago, approached Wu Jin. Your people came for a mining colony, the elder said. You destroyed an empire for 50,000 workers. Wu Jin nodded. Yes. Why? Wu Jin looked at the memorial. At the names of the dead, 'cause they were ours. And we never abandon our own. Never. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed his head. The galaxy has many predators, he said. We have learned to fear them all. But until today, we never understood the most important truth. What truth? The elder looked up at the stars. The most dangerous creature is not the one that hunts. It is the one that protects. Wu Jin said nothing. He simply stood before the memorial and remembered. Across the galaxy, 17 species began telling stories about humanity. Stories about a species that would cross the stars to save a single citizen. Stories about soldiers who died smiling. Stories about a people who never surrendered, never retreated, and never left anyone behind. The humans had come for their people, and the galaxy would never forget.